Hey guys, welcome to Mind Vault. Today, we will go through the book How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. This book is not about tricks. It is not about manipulation. It is about understanding how humans truly think, feel, and behave. And once you understand that, influence becomes natural. Before we begin, let me ask you something. Why do intelligent people still fail in relationships? Why do talented people remain unnoticed? Why do good intentions often create bad reactions? And what if the real problem is not what you say, but how the human mind is wired to hear? By the end of this audiobook, you will understand why people resist advice, why criticism almost never works, why influence is invisible and silent, and how small changes in behavior can transform your personal and professional life. Let us begin with a story. In the early 20th century, New York City witnessed one of its most dramatic manhunts. A criminal known as Two-Gun Crowley was surrounded by police. He had killed officers. He was armed. Bullets flew through the night. The city watched in shock. But while bleeding inside that apartment, Crowley wrote a letter. And in that letter, he said something unbelievable. He wrote, "Under my coat is a weary heart, but a kind one. One that would harm nobody." Think about that for a moment. A man who killed others genuinely believed he was not wrong. This was not madness. This was human nature. Dale Carnegie opens the book with a powerful truth. Almost no one sees themselves as the villain. Not criminals. Not politicians. Not co-workers. Not even us. Another infamous gangster, Al Capone, once said, "I gave people pleasure. All I got was abuse." In his mind, he was a misunderstood hero. This leads us to the first and most important lesson of the book. Never criticize, condemn, or complain. Because the moment you criticize someone, their ego feels attacked. Their mind shuts down. Their attention turns inward, not toward your message. Even if you are correct, the other person becomes busy protecting their self-image. Here is a darker psychological truth. When people feel criticized, the brain releases stress hormones. Logic reduces. Defense increases. Influence disappears. That is why arguments destroy relationships. That is why lectures fail. That is why saying, "I told you so," never teaches anything. Criticism may make you feel right, but it rarely makes others better. Abraham Lincoln understood this deeply. Once, during the Civil War, a general failed badly. Lincoln was furious. He sat down and wrote a harsh letter, pointing out every mistake. The letter was accurate, emotionally justified, powerful, but Lincoln never sent it. Why? Because he understood that criticism relieves the speaker, not the listener. Sending that letter would only damage trust and cooperation. So he kept it to himself. And history remembers Lincoln not just as a leader, but as a master of human relations. Understanding is stronger than judgment. People do not want to be corrected. They want to be understood. This does not mean accepting bad behavior. It means seeing the cause before attacking the person. There is a story of a pilot whose plane almost crashed because a mechanic filled it with the wrong fuel. Lives were at risk. Everyone expected anger. Instead, the pilot calmly put his arm around the mechanic and said, "I trust you. You'll never do this again. Please service my plane tomorrow." That mechanic never made the mistake again. Fear makes people hide. Respect makes people grow. People do not improve when they feel small. They improve when they feel safe. Now, let me ask you something. When was the last time you criticized someone and actually changed them? Think honestly. Dale Carnegie then takes us deeper into the human mind. He says every human action is driven by one central desire. Not money. Not power. Not success. The desire to feel important. This desire controls decisions, emotions, and behavior more than we realize. There was a man named Charles Schwab who earned over $1 million a year at a time when that amount was unimaginable. Not because he was the smartest engineer, but because he knew how to handle people. He said, "I never criticize. I praise openly and sincerely." He understood something rare. Appreciation unlocks effort. Here is another uncomfortable psychological truth. People will do more to protect their ego than to improve their future. That is why humiliation destroys loyalty. That is why appreciation creates motivation. But appreciation must be real. Flattery is fake. Appreciation is specific and honest. Humans can sense manipulation, but they respond deeply to sincerity. Ask yourself this quietly. Who in your life deserves appreciation but never hears it? Remember that name. So far, you have learned that criticism creates resistance, understanding creates influence, ego drives behavior, and appreciation is power when sincere. But this is only the beginning. As humans, we like to believe that people judge us based on logic, talent, or truth. But in reality, most judgments are made in the first few seconds, long before words fully land. There is a simple story that explains this. A man once applied for a job he was fully qualified for. His resume was strong. His experience was solid. Yet he never received a call back. Later, he discovered that another candidate, with fewer skills, was selected. The difference was not intelligence. It was emotional impact. The selected candidate smiled, listened carefully, asked thoughtful questions, and made the interviewer feel important. That feeling stayed longer than any qualification. Dale Carnegie explains that people are not impressed by what you know. They are impressed by how you make them feel. This is why the book emphasizes a simple but powerful truth. If you want people to like you, become genuinely interested in them. Most people do the opposite. They try to appear interesting instead of being interested. There was once a dog trainer who explained why dogs love humans more than other dogs. Humans pet them, speak softly, and show interest. Dogs don't care about your achievements. They care about your attention. Humans are not very different. When you ask someone about their story, their struggles, their dreams, something changes. Their brain releases pleasure chemicals. They associate that feeling with you. Here is a dark psychological fact you should be aware of, not to misuse, but to understand. People like those who allow them to talk about themselves. The listener gains influence without saying much. This is why good listeners are rare and powerful. There is a story of a journalist who interviewed famous people for decades. When asked how he built such strong connections, he said one thing: "I listened as if nothing else mattered." He didn't interrupt. He didn't correct. He didn't compete. And people opened up to him in ways they never did with others. Listening is not silence. Listening is respect. Another principle from the book sounds almost too simple, yet it is deeply psychological. Smile. Not a fake smile. Not a forced one. A real, warm expression. In one study, people who smiled were perceived as more trustworthy, more intelligent, and more confident, even when saying the same words as those who did not smile. A smile tells the brain, "You are safe here." This is why customer service, leadership, and even negotiations change drastically when warmth is present. There was a businessman who struggled with sales. He memorized scripts, studied techniques, and practiced persuasion. Nothing worked. One day, his mentor told him to forget everything and focus on one thing. Smile genuinely and speak kindly. His sales doubled. Not because of strategy, but because people felt comfortable. Comfort creates openness. Openness creates influence. Another powerful idea Dale Carnegie introduces is remembering and using people's names. A name is the sweetest sound to a person in any language. There was a politician who remembered thousands of names. When asked how, he said, "I don't remember names. I remember people." When someone feels remembered, they feel valued. And when people feel valued, loyalty grows. Now let us talk about something uncomfortable but real. People do not change because you prove them wrong. They change when they feel understood. There was a father who constantly argued with his teenage son. The more the father corrected, the more the son rebelled. One day, the father stopped arguing. He started listening. He acknowledged feelings without agreeing with behavior. Slowly, the son opened up. The rebellion reduced. This is not weakness. This is emotional intelligence. A dark psychology insight here is important. When people feel heard, their need to fight disappears. Conflict often exists not because of disagreement, but because of unheard emotions. Dale Carnegie warns strongly against arguments. He says the only way to win an argument is to avoid it. Why? Because even if you win logically, you lose emotionally. The other person feels defeated, embarrassed, or resentful. And resentment blocks influence. There was once a debate champion who admitted something surprising. He said, "I can win debates on stage, but I lose relationships off stage." Truth without empathy creates distance. Another principle sounds counterintuitive. If you are wrong, admit it quickly and clearly. Most people do everything to protect their image. But admitting mistakes creates trust. It disarms the other person. There was a manager who made a serious mistake in a project. Instead of blaming his team, he stood up and said, "This was my decision, and I was wrong." The room went silent. But something powerful happened. The team trusted him more. They worked harder. They supported him. Honesty builds authority. Trying to appear perfect builds fear. Now consider this carefully. If you want to influence people, never begin by telling them they are wrong. Begin by acknowledging where you agree. This does not mean lying. It means starting from common ground. There was a negotiator who handled difficult disputes. His secret was simple. He always began with agreement. "I understand why you feel this way." Only after that did he introduce his perspective. People do not resist ideas. They resist feeling disrespected. Another dark psychological fact to understand is this. The human ego wants to be right more than it wants truth. So instead of saying, "You're wrong," say, "I might be mistaken, but here's how I see it." This language keeps doors open. Now let me ask you a question. Think about the last disagreement you had. Did you try to win, or did you try to understand? Remember your answer. Dale Carnegie then explains something that separates leaders from controllers. People support what they help create. If you want someone to change, involve them in the solution. Ask questions. Let them arrive at the conclusion themselves. There was a factory owner who struggled with productivity. Instead of forcing rules, he asked workers for ideas. Productivity increased. Not because the ideas were revolutionary, but because people felt ownership. Influence grows when people feel respected. As we move forward, remember this. You do not need to dominate to influence. You do not need to speak loudly to be heard. You do not need to control to lead. Human beings follow those who make them feel seen. As the book moves forward, Dale Carnegie touches one of the most sensitive areas of human behavior: change. Changing people is difficult not because they are stubborn, but because change threatens identity. When people feel forced to change, they feel attacked. When they choose to change, they feel powerful. There was once a school teacher who struggled with a disruptive student. Punishments failed. Warnings failed. One day, the teacher did something unusual. She gave the student responsibility. She told him she trusted him to help maintain order in the class. The behavior changed. Not because the student became obedient, but because he became valued. This reveals an important truth. People rise to the expectations placed upon them. A dark psychological insight here is worth noting. Labels shape behavior. When you label someone negatively, they unconsciously act to confirm it. When you label someone positively, they strive to protect that image. This is why criticism creates rebellion, but encouragement creates growth. Dale Carnegie explains that if you want to correct someone, begin with praise. Not fake praise. Honest recognition of what they do well. There was a factory supervisor who constantly shouted at workers for mistakes. Productivity dropped. Morale collapsed. Eventually, he changed his approach. He began praising small improvements before mentioning errors. Productivity increased. Errors reduced. People accept correction more easily when their dignity is protected. Another powerful story comes from parenting. A mother struggled to get her child to complete homework. Threats and punishments failed. One evening, she said something different. She said, "You're the kind of person who finishes what you start." I believe that. The child finished the homework. This is not manipulation. This is belief-shaping behavior. Another principle Dale Carnegie emphasizes is saving face. Everyone makes mistakes. But how you point them out determines whether the person improves or resents you. There was a manager who corrected employees publicly. He believed public correction built discipline. Instead, it built fear. When he started correcting privately and praising publicly, loyalty grew. Humiliation damages self-respect. And once self-respect is damaged, cooperation dies. Here is a dark psychology fact that explains this. Shame activates the same brain regions as physical pain. Public embarrassment is remembered longer than physical injury. That is why influence must be gentle. Another subtle but powerful technique is asking questions instead of giving orders. There was a leader who rarely told people what to do. Instead, he asked, "What do you think is the best approach?" People felt involved. Resistance reduced. Ownership increased. When people reach conclusions themselves, they defend those conclusions. Now consider this carefully. If you want someone to improve, do not tell them they are failing. Help them see progress. Progress motivates. Failure paralyzes. Dale Carnegie tells a story of a manager who kept detailed records of employee improvements. Even small improvements were acknowledged. Confidence grew. Performance followed. Another uncomfortable truth comes here. People do not remember what you said as much as they remember how you made them feel. This applies to leadership, relationships, friendships, and even strangers. There was a customer who returned to a store for years. Not because prices were lowest, but because one employee treated him with respect during a difficult time. That emotional memory created loyalty. Influence is emotional memory. Now we move into a more subtle and darker side of psychology. Motivation. Most people assume money motivates behavior, but money only motivates survival. Meaning motivates effort. Dale Carnegie explains that people want to feel useful, important, needed. There was a janitor at a space agency who said he wasn't cleaning floors. He said he was helping put a man on the moon. His work mattered to him. When people see purpose in their actions, effort increases naturally. A dark psychological reality here is this. When people feel ignored or insignificant, they create problems just to feel seen. Many conflicts are not about disagreement. They are about invisibility. This is why attention can heal behavior faster than punishment. Now let me ask you something quietly. In your life, do people feel valued when they are around you? Think honestly. Dale Carnegie then explains one of the most powerful influence tools that few people use correctly: appealing to noble motives. Most people see themselves as good, even when they behave poorly. If you appeal to their better self, behavior improves. There was a businessman who trusted his clients openly. Some took advantage, but most became more honest. Because trust activates integrity. This is risky, but powerful. Now comes one of the most misunderstood principles in the book. Make the other person happy about doing what you suggest. This does not mean bribery. It means aligning your request with their desires. There was a parent who wanted their child to read more. Instead of forcing reading time, the parent created a small reading corner and allowed the child to choose books. Reading became enjoyable. Choice creates cooperation. Control creates resistance. A dark psychology fact to be aware of is this: humans resist being controlled, even when control benefits them. Autonomy is a deep psychological need. Influence works when people feel they are choosing. As we near the end of this part, understand something important. True influence is quiet. It does not announce itself. It does not demand attention. It works in the background, shaping emotions and decisions subtly. Powerful people are rarely loud. They are calm, observant, respectful. As we come to the final part of this journey, it is important to pause and reflect on something deeper. Everything you have heard so far is not about controlling people. It is about understanding them. In today's world, influence has become louder. Social media rewards attention. Opinions are shouted. Arguments are constant. Yet, human psychology has not changed. People still want to feel respected. People still want to feel heard. People still want to feel important. Dale Carnegie wrote this book decades ago, but its lessons apply more than ever. There was a young man who struggled on social media. His posts received little attention. He tried trends. He copied popular styles. Nothing worked. One day, he changed his approach. Instead of talking, he started listening. He replied thoughtfully. He appreciated others publicly. Slowly, people noticed him. Influence grew. Attention given returns as attention earned. This is why manipulation fails in the long run. Dark psychology may create short-term control, but it destroys trust. And without trust, influence collapses. A dark psychological truth you must remember is this: manipulation works best on the unaware. Awareness protects you. When someone flatters excessively, rushes agreement, creates urgency, or attacks your self-worth, pause. Real influence is calm. It never pressures. It never humiliates. Dale Carnegie's principles work because they align with human dignity. In leadership, the leaders people follow are not the loudest. They are the most respectful. They praise publicly. They correct privately. They listen deeply. They admit mistakes. In friendships, people stay not because you entertain them, but because they feel safe with you. In families, relationships heal not through authority, but through empathy. There was a man who repaired his broken relationship with his father by doing one thing. He stopped correcting and started listening. Years of distance softened. Not because problems vanished, but because respect returned. Now let me ask you an important question. What kind of person do people become after spending time with you? Do they feel smaller or stronger? This question reveals everything. Influence is not about winning. It is about lifting. Another quiet lesson from this book is patience. Human change is slow. People rarely transform overnight. But small shifts, repeated consistently, create massive results. A single smile. A single moment of listening. A single honest appreciation. These seem small, but they shape memory. People may forget your words, but they will remember how you made them feel. As you move forward, remember this. You do not need to dominate conversations to be respected. You do not need to argue to be intelligent. You do not need to criticize to be honest. You need awareness. Now, think back to the name you remembered earlier. The person who deserves appreciation but never hears it. What if you changed that today? This audiobook is not complete unless action follows awareness. Before we close, I want to thank the members of the Mind Vault community. Your support allows this channel to create meaningful, thoughtful content. You are not just viewers. You are part of the journey. And now, I want to hear from you. In the comments, answer this question honestly. What is one behavior you will stop, and one behavior you will start after listening to this. If this audiobook helped you, share it with someone who might need it. Subscribe to Mind Vault for more deep, timeless knowledge. And if you want to support this channel, like this video and become a member. Thank you for listening. Until next time, stay aware.